Hello friends, today I'll be telling you about my newest digital camera, the Ricoh GR3X HDF. This is a camera that was announced on the 28th of March 2024, and quite a few people on social media, in photography circles and in Ricoh Facebook groups sort of said, hey, is this some kind of early April Fool's joke? Why have Ricoh released yet another version of the GR3 camera with a slight variation on past models? And people predicted, this isn't going to sell, this is a joke, no one will want this. And yet, Ricoh have pulled a rabbit out of the hat once again. The demand for this camera is far outstripping supply, and across the board we are seeing shortages of Ricoh GR3 cameras in almost every market worldwide. Now, if you're wondering what HDF means, it stands for Highlight Diffusion Filter. So this is in effect an inbuilt filter that you can switch on and off like a neutral density filter, but this one has the effect of a black mist filter. So it softens the highlights and gives it a real sort of cinematic look to your images. Now, Ricoh released the HDF version of both the GR3 with the 28mm equivalent focal length and also the GR3X with the 40mm equivalent focal length. Now, in March last year, in 2023, I bought the GR3 Diary Edition camera. This camera has completely changed the way that I do street and travel photography, and there's 3 videos on this channel already about the Ricoh GR3 Diary Edition camera. And when I came back from my first trip with the GR3, it was to Japan last March and April, I said, right, I love this camera so much, I'm definitely going to buy the GR3X. But I wasn't in any kind of hurry. So when they announced this new HDF version, at first it didn't really interest me that much. I have used black mist filters in the past. I do like using them. I didn't think it was a terribly compelling case for me to get one. However, the more I thought about it, I don't even use the ND filter in my Diary Edition GR3. So I thought, I'm not really going to miss anything. I may as well grab the HDF while I can get it. Now, the GR3X HDF is actually identical to all other GR3X cameras, except for the fact that it has this highlight diffusion filter. All of the specs are exactly the same. Now, in comparison with the GR3, there's a couple of differences. Obviously, we've already spoken about focal length. The other one is about the lens construction. So the GR3 has 6 elements in 4 groups, including 2 aspherical lens elements, and the Ricoh GR3X has 7 elements in 5 groups, including 2 aspherical lens elements. And in terms of the specifications of the camera, all they've done is swap out the ND filter for the highlight diffusion filter. Now, what I love about Ricoh is they have this GR website, and on this GR blog, they talk about why they created this camera. So the product designer talks about the camera, what feedback they had, what they decided to do, and what effect it will have on your photos. I really love this. They did this for the Diary Edition camera as well, which I absolutely loved. And I found this one recently about the HDF camera, and this is just wonderful. A camera company talking about how they design products. I think it's superb. And of course, we also saw this with another company that Ricoh owns, Pentax. Pentax, of course, did a series of videos about their new film camera. So again, you've got the designer of the product talking through why they made certain decisions. Now, one really interesting piece of information I found out through that GR blog is that the HDF filter is printed using Ricoh's inkjet technology. That is really, really curious, and that was a really interesting fact that I saw on the GR blog. So it's definitely worth reading. Ricoh have made it really easy with the HDF camera to turn the filter on and off, which I love. It's not buried in some menu. There's a button on the back of the camera there, and you press that and instantly you'll see on the screen a little HDF on the LCD there, and you know instantly that you've got the filter on. Now, there were a few other little changes with this version of the camera. The first thing to talk about is the shutter release button is painted a grayish silver color, which is a little bit different. And they say that the appearance changes depending on the angle of the light. Now, there were 2 other little changes with the firmware for the camera. The first one was to do with white balance, and the second one was to do with the autofocus select areas. Now, those custom white balances and the zone select AF, they're actually able to be rolled out to existing GR3 cameras through a firmware update. But of course, the highlight diffusion filter is a physical part of the camera, and that cannot be rolled out through a firmware update, sadly. So there seems to be a contingent of people in Ricoh and photography circles that get really angry that Ricoh are bringing out new versions or new tweaks to the GR3 line. I think it's fantastic. I think if they keep selling these slightly different models, they'll keep making more and more money, and that will really encourage them to develop further cameras down the line, whether that's a GR4, whether that's a new version of a GR3 or GR3X, or whether, you know, that's putting money into other sorts of cameras like the Pentax are with their film camera. So although this is like a special edition of the GR3 line, there's no sort of bells and whistles like you got with the Diary Edition camera, unfortunately. Of course, with the Diary Edition camera, which I reviewed on my channel, you have the beautiful sort of canvas case and you have the nice sort of finger strap. And you're also able to send away for a customizable hot shoe cover engraved with anything you want, as long as it was down to a few characters. And here is a picture of mine here, which I got, which I actually keep in my office. I never use on my camera because I don't want to lose it, funnily enough. But with the GR3X HDF, yeah, you didn't really get many extras. You just got the camera and you got this hand strap here. The strap is okay. I wouldn't say it's brilliant. I really wish it had some kind of little fastener here that you could zip up to your wrist a little bit. But, you know, having said that, I've used this through Indonesia for 2 weeks and I never dropped it or had any issues with it like that. I do really prefer the finger strap of the Diary Edition camera though, so I'll probably look at getting a similar finger strap for my GR3X HDF. I really like the fact that it is all black and it's got that sort of greyish silver shutter release button on top. There's certainly no confusion when I have these two cameras in my camera bag, which one I'm picking up. Of course, the Diary Edition camera has a very distinctive look and it has that canvas case. And of course, the GR3X HDF has, you know, this all black look except for the shutter button on top there. And I also picked up this leather GR case. Now this didn't come with the camera, I had to buy this separately, but I do really like it. I've left the GR3X HDF in this case for my travels, whether it's in my pocket or in my bag, and it's taken really good care of it. Now, although I find the GR3X strap not quite as good as the finger strap on the Diary Edition camera, there is one thing that I like better, and that is this GR case that I had to buy separately. With this GR case, I had, you know, this camera in my pocket or my bag. It never once turned on accidentally. Now you might be saying, well, why would it? Well, if you've watched my review of the GR3 Diary Edition camera, quite often, if the camera is in my pocket, it will turn on. I'll bump the on-off button somehow and the camera will turn on unbeknownst to me. So I'll get the camera out of my pocket and I'll know something immediately is wrong because the camera is quite warm. I'm like, what's going on here? The camera has been nudged on in my pocket and it's really warm. The battery's almost flat and I'll have to try and get a spare battery out of my bag and put it into the camera if I want to take a photo. So that kind of happens, you know, once every couple of days usually if I'm, you know, walking around towns or cities. With this camera though, the GR3X HDF, in that leather case, it never once turned on accidentally by itself. So I think it's probably that the leather case is probably a bit more sturdy, where the walls of the sort of canvas case for the Diary Edition camera are maybe a little bit thinner, and it's a little bit easier to nudge the on-off button through the case. Now, when I was in Indonesia, we visited Bali and we visited Flores. Yeah, what I planned to do was do a side-by-side. So I'd walk around and I'd have the GR3 and the GR3X HDF, and I'd take different photos with the cameras and show you the same scene with both cameras. But it didn't really work out like that. And the reason is because when I was in the flow of using one camera, I just wanted to use that focal length. I didn't want to have to swap all the time between two different cameras. And you know, I'm right-handed. The GR3 is very much a one-hand camera. And if you're taking a photo with a camera, I didn't want to have to then put it in my pocket, put it away, get the other one out, take a photo, and then keep swapping all the time. It sort of really interrupted my flow when I was walking around towns and cities. So instead, what I did was I took one camera out for a walk and I kept taking photos with it. When I got to a scene that I thought, yeah, I really need the other camera, that's when I swapped. Then I would swap over to the other camera and I would keep taking photos with that camera until I got to a scene where I thought, yeah, I really want the other camera. So that's what I did. I just kept swapping over every, you know, 15, 20 minutes or so. Now, as for actually using the HDF filter, well, at first when you get the camera, you know, you're switching the HDF button all the time and taking the same scene to see what it looks like with and without the HDF filter. But of course, it's a bit like a black mist filter. You know, you do the same thing when you first get a black mist filter. It's on the front of your lens all the time, and you're taking loads of images. Then after a while, you're thinking, right, well, you know, it doesn't work in every situation. I have to be very sort of specific with when I'm using this filter. So after the first couple of days, the vast majority of my images are not using the HDF filter at all. But you know, as you're sort of traveling and you're visiting place to place, you sort of come across certain scenes where you know the HDF filter is going to look good. So one of the scenes I want to talk to you about is this scene here of these scooters, and you've got this beautiful sort of afternoon sunlight coming in here against the trees and bushes. This was actually outside Ojisan Film Lab. I dropped off 9 rolls of film at Ojisan Film Lab, a really nice crew there, and they did the film development and high-res scans for just $2 a roll. What a bargain. You can see some of the results of those scans on this channel. Make sure you check them out. But after I come out of the lab, I was walking along back towards the shopping center, and there was just this row of scooters and this beautiful light and the trees and bushes and a wall. And I was like, yeah, this is going to look really good with the HDF filter. So here are 2 images here showing you what it looks like with and without. I think the one with the HDF filter works really well. It sort of diffuses that light and makes everything look a bit dreamy. Looks super cool. And that's the thing about using the HDF filter. Less is more. I don't think using it for every single image is the way to go. I think you really have to assess your lights and, you know, maybe take a few with and without and see which looks better. But generally I found that, yeah, it was only certain situations that really triggered me to press that HDF button. So now I'm going to show you some of my favorite images from Indonesia, from the island of Bali and the island of Flores. I absolutely love these images. The ones of Bali are mostly of the lush tropical rainforest vibe of Ubud, and most of the photos from Flores are of the fishing town of Labuan Bajo. This is a town that I walked through 3 or 4 times. Really loved taking photos there. The locals were all very friendly. Quite often, you know, the guides in particular would call you over and get you to take a photo of them. So there's a few images here of locals posing, which I thought was really cool. Very friendly people. And yeah, there's just so many scenes that I wanted to capture. Things that you just don't see in Australia or in Europe or America. Really cool place, and really glad I visited. Now, just one final thing. In this slideshow of images, I will put in the bottom left of the frame HDF if I use the HDF filter on any of the images, although there's actually not that many in the slideshow that I use the HDF filter for. So that finishes the Bali photos, but if you want to see more, make sure you check out my Substack, mattlovescameras.substack.com. It's my free photography newsletter. Now for the Flores photos. So there you go. What did you think of the images of Bali and Flores taken on the Ricoh GR3X HDF camera? I would love to know. Please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment below. And if you have any questions about the Ricoh GR3, the Ricoh GR3X or the HDF model, please drop them in the comments below and I'll answer them too.